Halloween to everyone out there. Yes, it's that special night, and I will be sharing some encounters, stories. It'll be a mixed bag of things that have happened in the past. And I got influenced by my friend Joe Puno, who's here tonight. We're at Judd Trail. And what was really interesting is that last night and tonight we were talking about exorcisms. I went through ghosts and demons and all these other stuff. So hey, Koniko Kid, happy Halloween to you too. Hopefully I'm saying it correctly. So tonight was a fantastic story. Little plug for my friend. Go to Hawaiian Hauntings on Facebook. Join up. It's free, of course. And then check out his live streams. He did 31 of them. 31 live streams. I celebrate tonight because that's incredible. And he's had some experiences up here as well. We're at Judd Trail right now. If you look, you can see the flux that's out there. It's pulsating, and I gave the spirits an opportunity to either let us know if they're happy with what they hear. Hey, Boogie, good to see you. And that would flash green if they're happy with hearing something, or red if it's no, they're not happy. So I'm going to go with a basic premise with the flux tonight.
Hear that?
What you hear?
A guy.
I heard
A gun?
A guy going, ooh.
no, not me.
Oh, wow. Well, apparently, folks, things are already happening up at Judd Trail. Anyway, for this evening, I wanted to start off with something my friend Joe just mentioned about a encounter he had here several years ago on Halloween night where they had seen the faceless woman. Amy, good to see you. Thank you for stopping by. He was talking about the faceless woman, which is a very prevalent spirit here in Hawaii. There's all kinds of stories about her. There's even a story about the faceless woman where she was at Kahala Mall, and she was there and she actually interacted with a security guard that had passed away. It's a story shared by Glenn Grant, so I won't go into detail with that. But there was also a story shared by my friend named Ivan. And he actually said that there was, in one of the toy stores in Kahala Mall, there was a faceless ghost, but it wasn't her. It was a little girl. So, sometimes I kind of tend to wonder about these things, and I say to myself, is that her daughter? Could very well be. Other thing that I wanted to share with you tonight before we start stories, I'll be talking for about 45 minutes to an hour. Happy Halloween to everybody. Sister 808, thank you for stopping by. Thank you, Boogie. Thank you, Neil Toma. Happy Halloween to you too. For about 45 minutes to an hour, we're going to be sharing stories and stuff. But I wanted to go over the whole story about the faceless woman of Waialae Drive-In. I don't know if any of you folks are familiar with that. Just is in the house. Thank you, Just, for being here tonight. Thank you for the likes as well, folks. It does help the channel to grow. Hawaiian Hauntings, who is very nearby to me right now, is also chiming in for this evening. So we're going to go over that story. I think Joe, it's probably myself and a lot of other people, we really love the faceless woman of Waialae Drive-In.
Beautiful gal.
Beautiful gal. She first showed up in 1959, or that's the first earliest reported encounter with her. One night, this woman goes into the bathroom, and as she enters the bathroom, there's a woman in there, and she's more or less bent over, combing her long, beautiful hair. The woman goes and uses the bathroom, and when she comes out, she goes up to the sink and she greets the woman because she's being polite. Woman doesn't say anything. She's just combing her long hair in front of her face. And then as she is washing her hands, all of a sudden, this faceless woman flips her hair back. And yeah, there was no face there at all. It looked like a boiled egg, from what I understand. And that was really crazy because you know what a boiled egg looks like. So you can only, imagine in your head how smooth the face was with no features at all. And since that time, there have been reports about her. She started to move around after they got rid of the drive-in. The drive-in is actually built over a cemetery. If you ever go to the island of Oahu and you go up to Kahala Mall, you'll see a small cemetery there. I believe it's called Ocean View Cemetery. My take on it is that cemetery had extended further out to where the drive-in is. And so they tore that down. Then she moved around. There's a public storage unit over there. She's been sighted over there. She's also been sighted at Kahala Mall in the theater. People say late at night when they go to clean the theater up, they go into there, and there's this one woman sitting in the front. And at first they didn't know who she was, so they approached her and said, "Well, it's time to go." And she turns around, and of course, as always, she has no face. So after a while, the people in the theater got wise to all of that, and they just looked in and they would see her, and it's like, whenever you're ready to leave, we can finish up what we need to do. Very prevalent spirit here on the island of Oahu. But I love Joe's story. It's an incredible account of almost like face to face with the faceless woman up in this particular area that we're at right now. Witness saw a faceless woman in the woman's bathroom combing her hair. Yes, that's the one. That's the infamous faceless woman. Matter of fact, a few years ago, I was out with my IR camera, and I was taking photos after a thunderstorm. And I happened to face my camera towards this bench, this cement bench, and I took a photo. It was weird. I was getting all kind of stuff on the camera. I got what looked like a bunch of people dressed in period clothing. They were up against the cemetery wall that's next to it. And so I faced the camera and I take a photo. And interestingly enough, there was a woman with no face that showed up in the photo. What's even further interesting about this particular situation that happened is right there, right next to where she is, there is an actual Japanese temple. So, and then across the street, there is a Japanese cemetery in the immediate area. So, kind of makes you wonder, how all of this kind of fits in, yeah? If it's some kind of jigsaw puzzle we've never considered before when it comes to ghosts and the ones that we know about. So, but yeah, that's a great story. I know Joe already told it, but I'm up here. I don't know. It usually happens around midnight or so, and we're looking at 10:58 p.m. Hawaii time. So who knows what happens at midnight? It is Halloween, and all kind of crazy things can and will happen. One of the things I wanted to talk about this evening to start is the whole idea of having a haunted house and having to interact and live in one. I remember a long time ago, as I was growing up, I lived on the grounds of what was known as the Oahu Insane Asylum. And is there synchronicity going on here? Because my friend Joe kind of fits into all of this, but indirectly. Anyway, it was built in the 1800s, and in the 1930s, it was torn down, and they put a war camp over there. And that was there for a number of years. But the interesting thing about that particular structure was that they took all of the records that they could find. They could not find all the records for the Oahu Insane Asylum, and they transferred it to the newly built mental health facility that they have up in Kaneohe, the Kaneohe State Hospital. Interesting how all these things kind of come together. When we were young, we would walk around and play army. And we would find like these bullet casings, like real legit, this was used in a machine gun type things. And we would find that scattered all over the place. The place seemed to have like a lot of bad energy around it as well. At one point in time, I was sitting outside one night in front of my home. And what I heard was, when I looked to the right, I heard what sounded like a large dog walking on the sidewalk. I paused what I was doing, because I was just kind of like humming to myself and playing with the radio. And I turned the radio down, and this large dog from the left-hand side, there was a hedge, you couldn't see the dog. It stopped, and then the hedge started to shake violently. And then it started up again, and it was walking, and it came around the corner and started walking up to the pathway of my house where I was living at. And what I saw defied all logic. It made absolutely no sense what I was staring at. What was there was this animal that looked like it had the body of a Great Dane, but its head was that of a cat. And I remember I was so scared, I backed myself up to the door and I kind of like reached behind me and I was trying to find a doorknob and I had a hard time finding it. And this thing is continuously walking up towards me. Then I finally get into the house and I slammed the door shut. Interestingly enough, I shared this story with my mother years later, and she told me that she had seen something very similar as well, a dog type of spirit or demon that she herself had encountered. Then I shared it with another person, and before I could finish the story, she says, "Stop right there. Don't say another word. Does this particular dog look like this entity?" I said, "Yes." She said she had encountered it too. She shared a very terrifying story about Ouija boards, a little bit of a detour. The story she shared about Ouija boards is that one night, I think it was around Halloween, they had a gathering of people and they decided to use an Ouija board as part of the celebration. They placed the Ouija board on the table, and as they were about to use it, the Ouija board levitates above the table, starts to spin clockwise, and then flies across the room. And there's a person sitting with his back to the wall, and the Ouija board decapitates the person. So there's a lot of crazy things to be said about doing all of these type of things, you know, when it involves even with a spirit box or anything else like that. Anyway, so when I was growing up, and I just had this memory, I know I've shared this story with some of you before about the house that I grew up in. I just had this memory that was really, really crazy. I don't know about the rest of you, but you know, when you were kids and you had like arts and craft in school, like around Halloween time, I got together with some of my friends in class and we decided, well, we were guided to do it, to just do whatever we wanted. And I made a mask, a Halloween mask. It was made out of cardboard, thin cardboard, and I shaped it into a white face with like cat ears. And I took it home and I placed it in the house, not thinking anything else about it because it's Halloween time and, you know, I just had something for that school year. Later that night, and for several nights after that, there would be this figure that would appear by the window. And that figure was wearing that mask. And it would kind of like lean in, you know, and you could see more details of the mask because, you know, I knew what it was and you could just see it. And there's somebody wearing this mask. And I don't remember everything because it was so long ago, but I know that that person was talking to me. It was saying hello. It was greeting, you know, and I'm like talking with whoever's wearing this mask. And at first I thought it was my dad, you know, like my dad was playing a trick on us and everything. But no, my dad was in his room. And that happened for several nights in a row. Now you can go and think about the fact that could it possibly be like, oh, you're experiencing an imaginary friend. Is that what you're seeing? Is that what you're hearing? But the thing is, everyone else, and I'm pretty sure nobody else has the memory anymore, was kind of like listening to what this figure had to say. And it got really, really interesting too, because there were times we had this extra bed in my room and there'd be somebody laying in bed, just this dark figure. And he would talk to us, you know, about fishing and all this other stuff. And I thought it was my uncle, you know, but I'm never really sure about that because it wasn't talking to me about the things my uncle would talk about. It just kept talking about fishing, you know, and engaging us again, like the face in the window, engaging us to have a conversation with whoever that is. So that's the earliest signs, except for the beast that I saw. That came up later on, but made me think about what if there's something in this area. But that was the first signs that the house was haunted. So this must have been like about a week or so later on. We all stayed in one room. We had bunk beds, like 2 on the top, 2 on the bottom. I slept on the bottom with my brother next to me. And I'm laying down in bed and the lights are out. It's as dark as you can see on the screen. And as I'm trying to fall asleep, and then I start to kind of succeed because I was a restless kid back then, I looked at the wall directly across from me, as dark as the screen you see, or practically almost as dark, I should say. And there was this little shadow on the wall. And it started calling out my name. And I was scared because I already dealt with the guy in the window just whispering and talking to us. I dealt with the shadow of the man that's just laying on the bed and trying to engage us in conversation. What is this now? Why am I experiencing this? And sure enough, as I'm talking, well, as it's talking to me, I can't say a word because it's actually targeting, I feel, or just calling me out. As it's starting to say my name over and over again, the shadow gets bigger and bigger, and it practically covers the entire wall. At that point, I panic. I jump out of bed, and just as I'm running past this giant dark shadow, I felt like a vice grip go over my legs, and I could not move at all. And in just hysterics, I don't even know if you can call it fear, just in total utter hysterics because I'm feeling something grabbing my legs. I know the shadow is only about a foot away from, off to the side. I started to scream. And I mean, I made a sound, and I've encountered ghosts throughout the years, but I made a sound that I didn't recognize as my own voice. That's how terrified I was. My father comes running into the room and he's like, "What's wrong, boy?" And I try to talk and I'm just sputtering over my words. I can't get words out of me. Finally, I tell him what happened. And he's, luckily I had a dad that would listen to me and just pay attention to what I'm saying. So finally he goes, "Okay, I'll be right back." So he goes into his room and he brings out this beautiful cross that's been blessed. And he puts it on my wall and he's trying to calm me down. I feel totally bad. Everyone in my room, my other brothers, are totally freaked out. He goes, "Everything will be okay. Just go back, lay down. It'll be fine." So I went and I lay down in my bed. And I remember this, and I asked my brother years later about it. I was laying down and the pillow's behind me, and I'm looking up at the bunk bed above me. And then all of a sudden, I hear from underneath the bed, and my brother heard it too, what sounded like a huge hand just pushing on it. And you can feel the pressure of its fingers and everything. And then right after that, there was this long scratching sound, and it was pretty down loud. And it started underneath my pillow, and it went all the way down to the other side of the bed. And it would stop and pause, return to the same spot it was before, and continue to scratch. The weird thing about the haunting of this house, I was so scared I would black out. I would just absolutely black out. And that's what happened to me. I don't know anything else that happens. I asked my brother. He doesn't know anything else that happens at all. Which brings me to the whole thing about ghosts and dreams. One night, it was about a day or two after the scratching incident under the bed. It was so terrifying. I wouldn't get out of the bed like putting my feet on the floor. I would just jump in front of the bed and then just run out of the room because of that fact. But I have this dream that me and my family were all sitting down in the living room. The TV is on. Everybody's watching. And it's a really strange dream because everyone is like in a trance. Everyone is just looking forward at the television and not really doing anything. And then all of a sudden, I feel something grab my feet and pull me away from the TV. Then it starts to drag me to my bedroom. And then all of a sudden, it yanks me underneath the bed. And then these arms go around me and starts talking to me and laughing. And, by now, voices, talking, shadows, everything. It's just way too much. And as I hear that, I look at the door to leave that room that's well lit, and it slams shut. And then I start to scream. So that was really starting to bug me as well. It's a haunted house. What can you do? The house is only so big. You can only go so, like maybe to the living room or the other bedroom that we had. Couldn't really do much with that. So long story short, I got so terrified I would sleep on my mom late at night. And she would get mad because she tried to get out of the bed. It's like, "Hey, you cannot lay down over there. I'm going to step on your head." So I had to kind of like get up and move, right? But I was still scared. I was trying to explain to them what's going on, but nobody would listen. They had a crib in that room. So one night, I left my bedroom and I went into my room, into their room, and I went underneath the crib, and I just kind of like pulled the handles down to bring it down all the way. You know, that little bars is the only thing I could see when that happened. And as I'm laying there, all of a sudden, the room got bright. And what the reason why it got bright, there was these glowing feet that just came into the room. And they were walking past the crib, and it stopped and it turned towards me. And again, in total fear, because I don't know what I'm experiencing. I don't know who that is. I passed out. The final thing that I remember that has been with me for my whole life was I woke up one evening on a couch in a living room, and there's no way I would lay down on that couch because I started to hear a man crying and sitting on that couch late at night. I asked my parents who it was. They didn't know who it was. I was on the couch and I was laying down. The curtains were wide open. Usually they're closed. And then from right next to my ear, I heard someone screaming in a very loud voice. And I passed out right after that. I think I wanted to share that because that's the one thing that led me here to all of you that are watching right now, was that one particular incident. The next thing I'm going to share with you right here tonight, because like I said, it's a short live stream, but it is Halloween. Hopefully it's still Halloween where you're at. I wanted to share with you folks. Thank you, Boogie. I appreciate that. Sorry for not looking at the screen all the time. I want to share with you folks a story that I did quite a while ago, several years ago, about scary stories from the Philippines. The story I'm about to share kind of like falls into place with what Joe Panohu was doing earlier when he was talking about a woman that was possessed. The name of the story is called The Exorcism of Clarita Villanova. Clarita, a 17-year-old Filipino girl, because I said her name wrong, had known a life of tragedy. She did not remember her father. She did not know if he had died or had deserted her mother. Her mother was a fortune teller by vocation. The girl was brought up watching her mother holding seances, communicating with the dead, and using clairvoyance to predict to people what they could expect in the future. Her mother took money from people for her services and then laughed at them behind their backs. To her, it was all just a game, a means of making a living by duping unsuspecting and gullible people. When Clarita was 12 years old, her mother died. Since she did not have any immediate family to take her in and care for her, she turned to prostitution for survival. At 18, she moved to Manila with her boyfriend, but found out that he was already married, so she began working as an exotic dancer. The big city was a hiding place, a center of money and vice for her business. But one morning at 2 a.m. on the streets of downtown Manila, Clarita was picked up by the police, who suspected her of being a vagrant, homeless person. The policeman called for a vehicle, and Clarita was taken to the ancient Bilibid prison, used as the city jail. Bilibid had been a prison for over 300 years. It was built by the Spanish and used by the Americans, the Filipinos, and the Japanese as a prison and a place of torment. 2 days after Clarita was incarcerated, there struck the strangest phenomenon to ever hit Bilibid prison in its 300-year history. This young woman was bitten severely on her body by unseen and unknown alien entities. She claimed there was two of them, a huge monster-like spirit and a smaller one. They sunk their fangs and teeth deep into her flesh underneath her skin. From the bites, the 18-year-old girl screamed in horror and fainted. The guards and medics heard the commotion and came running to the women's division of the prison, the other female inmates pointing to the writhing, tormented girl on a cot. The girl was taken to the prison hospital for observation and treatment, where all the doctors declared that they had never seen anything like it. These strange demonic bitings began to occur daily, baffling all who saw it. Dr. Mariano Lara, the chief medical examiner at the prison, appealed to help through the media and permitted many to view the strange phenomenon. Filipino, Chinese, and American doctors, university professors, and other professionals were called in to analyze the situation. After 3 awful weeks of this torture, a radio reporter came to Bilibid and taped a session while the doctors were violently struggling with Clarita. The reporter immediately released his story on a local radio station just after the 10 o'clock news. The news media soon caught wind of the occurrence and sent more reporters out to investigate. The newspapers, radio stations, and magazines found it to be their kind of story and began to publicize it. Even the cartoonists were soon drawing pictures of the entities from Clarita's descriptions as the bitings continued day by day. The UPI and other world news services began to report the phenomenon worldwide. Original caption: writhing under a vampire attack, Clarita, 18 of Manila, Philippines, is watched anxiously by the city's mayor as she is held by a police officer, doctor, and a nurse. Source: The Barrier Miner, May 28, 1953. This incident made the front page of many newspapers: Switzerland, France, Germany, England, Canada, even the United States. One doctor accused the girl of putting on an act in order to get publicity. Clarita gazed at the doctor and said, "You will die." He didn't feel anything at the moment, but the following day, the doctor expired without even getting sick. He simply died. Fear struck the city when that news was spread about. The girl was not only a harlot, they said she was also a witch who could speak curses upon human beings and they would die. The chief jailer had a confrontation with the girl. He had kicked her for something she had done wrong while rebelling against him. Clarita looked at the jailer in cold, inhuman hate and said, "You will die." Within 4 days, the man was dead and buried, the second person to fall victim to her curse. Dr. Lara and his medical staff were deeply concerned. They had a prisoner who certainly was not crazy, but who was being wildly attacked by unseen entities and being bitten deeply on all parts of her body by creatures no one else could see. They were afraid that this thing would kill them, as it had 2 others who dared to cross it. It was their responsibility to do something for the girl, yet they had no earthly idea what to do about the situation. It was beyond their medical knowledge. Who were these alien entities? The large one, Clarita said, was a monster in size. He was black and very hairy. He had fangs that came down on each side of his mouth, plus a set of buck teeth all the way around. The doctors verified her description by the teeth marks on her body, buck teeth solid, all the way around the bite, rather than sharp, deep bites in the front. The smaller entity was almost like a dwarf. He would climb up her body to bite her upper torso. Both of these spirits liked to bite her where there was a lot of flesh, like the back of her leg, the back of her neck, and the fleshy part of her upper arms. They were deep bites, leaving ugly, painful bruises. Dr. Lara and his assistants called in all sorts of observers, medical doctors, surgeons, psychiatrists, and professors from the Far East University and the University of Santo Tomas. They claimed they saw bite marks appear out of nowhere on Clarita's arms. Dr. Lara also described the bite marks as otherworldly because they were too large and round and seemed to have been made by molars. No one had ever witnessed such strange and demonic behavior, nor did they know any solution to the problem. They all wondered who would be the next victim of her curse. Dr. Lara and his staff sent out word globally, "Come and help us, please help us." In the end, hopelessness urged them to finally resort to exorcism. Reverend Lester Sumrall heeded the call. Because I was a foreigner in the Philippines, I went to the mayor's office and asked permission to see Clarita. He granted me his permission, but warned me that several people had been injured by the girl, and that had been cursed and were dead. I went with the understanding that I would not sue the government if I was hurt, and that I would not complain if mistreated. When I arrived at the prison, the head doctor of 6 physicians, Dr. Lara, was skeptical of this foreign minister, but he finally permitted me to see the girl. Clarita was being led into the room. She looked at them and said nothing, but when she saw Reverend Sumral, she screamed violently, "I hate you!" That was the beginning of the confrontation. There was a raging battle with the girl, blaspheming God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit. Her eyes were burning coals of fire and full of hate. I commanded the evil spirit to loose her. After a 3-day confrontation with the devil in her, the miracle of God came upon her. She relaxed, smiled, and said, "He's gone," indicating that the thing went out the window. And that's her story. It's very well known. If you want to know anything more about Clarita and her exorcism, you can go on Google. You'll find a whole bunch of stories shared about it. Some of them kind of deviate into different areas of the story. Some of them I think might be modified, but that's the one that I know best to my knowledge. And all things considered, that it's Halloween night, and we look at these situations about many different types of activity, and sometimes we need to pause. Thank you, Boogie. Thank you, everyone, for your comments, by the way. You need to pause and then think about that. You know, sometimes you got to go all out dark. Not always, but sometimes you do. Just to kind of like, since everyone's paying attention to ghost stories, share something like this that goes a little bit further into everything. And that's about it for now, guys. I wanted to make this kind of short. The only other thing I can tell you guys is that in the next several weeks, I will be going to an undisclosed location, but I will share my encounters with you. I'm going to be going out with Joe Panohu and some of my friends. Oh, hello, 808 Hawaiian Surf. Good to see you. I'll be going out with some of my friends, and this is a well-known location, and maybe I might be able to share a little bit more with all of you guys. But it's been really weird out here. I've been smelling like powder, like women's powder or talcum powder and stuff, and to be honest, it kind of weirded me out a bit, so I'm going to kind of wrap it up a little bit early with everyone. Thank you all for watching. I appreciate you guys being here this evening. Look for the new thing that I will be doing. I will be probably doing some videos on it as well. And I will be using that device that you see out in the distance. And I will be probably doing some spirit box sessions and everything also. God is good no matter how hard life may get. He protects us. Amen to that, Boogie. Appreciate it. Really, truly. And thank you for the likes, guys. I really find that helpful to this channel. If you're new, please check it out. We do investigations, we do stories, we do interviews. Oh, and that's another thing too. I had to delay an interview that I'm gonna be doing with Joe Panoho involving portals, which is really interesting because this place that we're at right now definitely has signs of that type of phenomenon taking place. So look forward to that as well. And anything else that's coming up. Oh, and in January or February. Thank you, Joshi. Happy Halloween to you too. January or February, we will be going to Mililani Cemetery Road. If you guys ever watched that other video, it was a long video, but we had crazy things happen at Mililani Cemetery Road. It won't be as long this time because that was just uncut straight all the way through. But I will be doing a live stream from Mililani Cemetery Road. That's coming up in January. Anything else? Powder, maybe toots around. Annette, that's very good. That's very good. Annette Chang, thank you. I was thinking maybe it was like a family spirit. Also, my roommate was telling me earlier that there's very strong demonic activity around, and some weird things have been happening here. Whispers have been heard. A tree branch snapped. There's been some loud sounds and everything else too. Again, all associated with Halloween. Or just the fact that this place is haunted all the time. But definitely look forward to that, you guys. And I'm probably going to be doing an interview with my friend who just went to Japan. I think he went to some haunted places. Matt Brighto, that's a spooky road. Oh, hell yeah. Mililani Cemetery Road is associated with a story that was shared, or maybe more than one, by Glenn Grant, saying that spirits walk up and down that road. We had a fantastic time that night. And believe it or not, we may have encountered the ghost of George W. Bush's dad. That's a long story, but that may have happened as well too. Anyway, guys, we have stuff coming up. The channel is moving along. I was sick for a while and had to catch up on my health and everything too, but doing better. So for all of you folks out there, thank you so much for tuning in. And I will be talking to you guys again soon. Maybe sooner than you think. Anyway, guys, Ghosts of Hawaii, you're home for a dose of ghosts. Happy Halloween. Take care.